Good morning and welcome to Daybreak Live Extra on Dominion Television, Ibadan. I am Samson Balogun. We begin this morning with a major legal and political development. The Supreme Court has nullified the PDP Ibadan Convention, a decision that could carry serious implications for the party's internal structure and political calculations moving forward. What does this ruling mean for party leadership, internal legitimacy, and the wider political landscape? Could it reopen old divisions or reset the conversation within the opposition? That is our first point of focus this morning. We'll also bring you the weather report and Daybreak news, where these major developments will be laid out clearly and concisely.
Right, and Amanulu Akpoido, as always, the newspapers offer their own angle on the issues driving national conversation. From politics to policy and public sentiment, we'll take you through the front pages and examine the stories shaping public discourse this morning. And joining us for that analysis is Afolabi Afolami, a public affairs analyst this morning.
And Amoluwaimi Adelakun. Later, we shift from politics to policy in a big story as we examine the future of education with the conversation, the new blueprints for teaching, unveiling the next generation of educators. At a time when learning methods are changing and classrooms are evolving, what should the modern educator look like? Are we preparing teachers for the realities of today's learners and tomorrow's demands? Helping us break that down is Dr. Julius Okolao.
And before we wrap up this morning, we'll bring you Trend Watch, and that takes us into the stories, reactions, and moments gaining traction across social media space and beyond.
Politics, policy, education, and the conversations shaping the country.
It's a packed morning and the issues are worth your attention.
This is Daybreak Live Extra. Stay with us on this dial. Good morning, guys.
Good morning to you.
Really nice
This
to
extra
be
morning.
here on a Friday.
And
once again.
happy new month to you and to our viewers across the world.
I almost forgot that. Happy New Month to you.
New
And that's our esteemed viewers out there. We say Happy New Month to you. Thank you for being a part of this team. Of course, we are back here. And
happy holidays to those who are
well, yeah, since today is, of course, the first of, definitely there will be a lot of people who would really want to, probably have a day and then go and have some time to relax. And the holidays are here too. Definitely. The federal government also declared some. And that will be something for the next. But then, let's talk about politics this morning. The landscape has actually shifted. A lot of things has happened in the last few weeks, but this that happened yesterday and the proclamation of the court as regards the legal tussle in the PDP actually shows that there is a lot to discuss within the PDP. And yesterday too, the BOT, immediately after the pronunciation by the court, the BOT took over, according to what the court said, that yes, the BOT has to take over and take hold of the party and maybe re-strategize, call the warring factions and discuss what exactly they need to do to move forward. But the BOT actually sat. And, that, I think it's a no victor, no vanquish situation for both factions of the PDP, the Yesom Wike faction, the Bala Mohammed and the Sheyi Makinde faction. I think at this point, they will all have to come back to the same drawing board and say, look, let's see what exactly we can do. As it stands, this might just be the only chance left for the PDP to be a formidable force in the forthcoming general elections.
I think it's of interest to many people and even me too, because everybody is expecting that we have the opposition game played by everybody who is capable. And perhaps if you want to think about prominent parties in the country that should be able to field in a candidate that is worthy of competition, it should be the PDP. And of course, as we have it now, it seems to be a conversation. But I want to take it from the angle of maybe the financial angle of things to say how much was spent for the national convention that was just nullified. And I was thinking about it and I discovered that...
You mean the Ibadan Convention?
The Ibadan Convention.
Okay.
That was just been...
Because there was Abuja Convention too.
Yeah. But how much was spent for this? So because if it was nullified, it means everything they did there would not count. The amount of money, the stress, the resources they put on into that convention has now as well been nullified. So it wasn't just the gathering or the political meaning of, okay, this was supposed not to be, that was the big deal, that should be the big deal. But how much money was spent? And I'm saying that to say that, how about that money was spent on the party itself in terms of building the structure? How about it was spent on the strategic positioning and plannings they can have across the country? How about they use that resources for, bringing up strategies, policy, this, prescription, a lot of frameworks that could help the structure of the party. I'm just thinking about, okay, so if we say it was nullified, in the first place, I think there were questions about who bankrolled that particular convention. That's also a thing. So if it was some people, where did they get the money to bankroll? Because obviously we know there's a faction. So one faction is bankrolling one, the other is bankrolling another. These resources can be put together and used for the betterment of this. And that's just my point now, to say, I'm not saying this because I feel like money is just something they should think about, because they should try to minimize and spend money wisely. No, that's not even my point. My point is, instead of spending that much and wasting that, because it's not even spending again now, it's wasting. Instead of wasting that much on maybe something that because obviously there's not one of them that would not have a doubt about the convention, even the ones that attended. Because obviously they knew that, okay, if INEC was not represented at the place, there's a chance that this might not even, but everybody just wants to do something. Okay, let's just start something because it seems some people are delaying the party, so let's get to work and do something. But, I want to say, a good number of times we've not been strategic when it comes to the political, and I say that because I know we've not really taken, and I keep saying this, we've not taken to, playing by the rules, especially as to an institution. We should have institutions. We should play by the rules of institutions, and that's what I'm saying. If the party is a party that has been for a while, if the party has constitution, if the party has bylaws, rules of engagement, what about these things? How about we have it also structured in the party's rules and regulations that whoever wants to conduct a convention, for example, must, maybe they have it as well, but it's just that many times they just flout the rules without anything coming of these things. And I really want to say that this is not really in a good way for them. This might not even yield out to be something positive for them, except they make the best of it. Like you said, if they come together and say, okay, so let's bring our heads together and let's think about what would be the possible future of this country as we speak. And I also wanted to take something, it was just like an institutional consequences that could have occurred from this. And for one, I would say, according to political science data that I got this morning, parties with leadership disputes within 12 to 24 months to elections, they have approximately 30 to 50% lower candidates coordination efficiency. So if you want to talk about candidates coordination efficiency, PDP is lacking, because obviously this is just a few months, less than 9 months to election, and this is just coming. So if you have a leadership vacuum and an organizational paralysis this much, then it tells that I'm not so sure you are ready for the 2027 election. Maybe they are trying to do everything they are doing for the next election after 2027, which is 2031. But for this election, I don't want to say it's a done deal. I don't want to say it's down the drain for them. I want to believe they can still do stuff. But I tell you for one, it would have been better if they started earlier, if they had nullified this convention, or they did not have this convention in the first place, and then they came together to, assemble their positions and say, this is what we are driving at. And again, I just wanted to mention too that there's a higher probability of parallel primaries as well, because some will still, well, it depends on what they do eventually. If they still want to go ahead with their factional discrimination or factional alignment, then it's still a problem for the leadership in the House. And so that's exactly one of the points in my absolute. I'm trying to look at the empirical Nigerian examples that we've had in the past, and we know this. The APC in Zamfara 2019, they had similar internal dispute, and of course the result was there was no valid candidate that was fielded, and it was an automatic loss for them. Again, PDP also, this same PDP in 2019 to 2023 in Rivers State, they had disputes which obviously reduced their electoral cohesion. And this ruling also creates legal uncertainty over who can conduct primaries in 2027. So let's say there's going to be a new convention that would bring everybody together. How much are they going to spend on that? One, two, who is going to bankroll that? I know I've been talking about money, but it's very important because they need every resource they can get. They need every money they can get for this election. And why am I saying that? The big gun, or should we say, the incumbent administration, there's a lot of money on the... See, I don't know how best to say this, but I'm so sure. Just recently, we discovered that the GSC in Lagos said we're going to buy the nomination, or they bought the nomination for the president. And that's to tell you that even the president does not need to really spend that much. There's a lot of money on the ground for them to spend. So while some people are saying they want to spend, because obviously the APC is in power, so you want to say talk about money, then these guys have more money. To talk about how much, I'm not talking about buying people, I'm not talking about selling votes and all of that. I'm saying in terms of doing a lot of structures and campaigns that might help the party, they have it in stock. So I'm saying PDP, even if they get together now, it will still be a big deal for them. And again, one of the problems they might have is, who are they going to field as the major candidates now? Because a group of people said Atiku is fit for the job. Others are saying, no, we can't have Atiku. And so it's been a back and forth and all of that. And we are having those kind of situations at this point in time when election is just a few days away. I'm saying this because if you count it, it's not like in hundreds and thousands of days. It's just a few days to election. And so this, at this time, the only thing that I think, in my own opinion, that can help the PDP, like you said, is to come together, get their acts right, dot their I's, cross their T's, and let's know this is what we are working by, and this is how we intend to make this happen. A lot of people have already lost trust in the system, in the PDP particularly, and some are saying, you can give reasons. Some members, some governors that were PDP had to defect, and because they said the party had internal disputes. Yes, we understand that. But going forward now, what are they going to do? Can they reconcile some of their members back and all of these things? And that's what we are saying. And it's a question we want to ask them, that PDP, can you really sustain this peace, or is this not a peace in the first place?
Yeah, I think it's a good way to leave your thoughts, because basically I think when all of this started, especially with we will have the convention, we will have the convention. Most persons were saying, don't have this convention, because the court is saying do not have this convention. INEC even said we won't be present. And then that faction of PDP, the Makinde faction, they thought it was a joke. INEC did not show up. And at the end of the day, before they left the venue of the convention, the likes of Wiki, were saying that's Amala convention at best. I mean, it won't amount to anything. And then they also thought that was a joke too. Certain persons were expelled. And then it brings me to question the fact that, I think the major reason, according to that faction of Wiki, why they expelled Wiki and a host of others is because of anti-party activities. So if you are not helping our party, why not leave? We don't want you anymore. And then that led to more issues, because even after the convention, do you know that those that were part of the convention that went there, one of them, after the convention, said, I have nothing to do with people that were expelled. And then it was at that point I knew that there's a problem, because you were there when the announcement was made, and then you come out after the convention that you had nothing to do with those that were expelled. So even within that faction, there were problems. So imagine when you have problems within your own faction. So I think even that Wiki faction, or let me say Makinde faction, they knew at some point that there would be problems even after the old convention. And then talk about the money that was wasted, talk about the resources, it's nothing to write home about, because even when the court said no, they came to Ibadan to get the court ruling, and then they went ahead to have the convention because of that court ruling. And then the court interpreted it as abuse of court order. And then if you want to build a democracy, if you are craving for a democratic system of government, I think you also should do right. If you say the ruling government is trying to hijack certain things, or they are trying to cause trouble for you, you too should do right. You should be a good example to us. I mean, you should tell us that you can be better when you come. Because at the end of the day, when you look at the opposition people, the politicians, most of them, they are not really giving us something to work with. That when you come, as you have claimed, can you also do better? Can you give us that reason or that confidence that you will follow culturally, you will follow the rule of law? And then beyond that, let's also talk about the fact that yesterday one of my guests mentioned that there's no room for reconciliation, because if I listen to both of you clearly, you say the party should come together at this point, because I don't know, ego has killed PDP to this point. So if they allow ego to kill the party finally, that's up to PDP. For a party that came into existence in 1998 around August, and they claimed to, at some point they said they will rule for 50 years, and now they're going through all of these issues. So now they are saying that a party, though I don't think it speaks the mind of the Makinde faction, and of course all other persons, the Bala Mohammed, but he said the reconciliation is not possible. I remember in the last few weeks, I was reading some headlines, and they were saying they are at the point of, trying to reconcile. But now it appears that reconciliation might not work. But even after the whole court ruling, if at all, that you don't want APC alone to be on the ballot, Yeah, maybe ADC with the recent judgment for ADC now, maybe they also have a candidate. If at all you want to uphold democracy, why not come together as a political party and settle your differences? I remember the words of the Zamfara governor, Dauda Lawa. He said what is killing PDP today is the ego of some big shot in the party. So even after this old drama, imagine if they did not go on with that convention, all the months that they wasted in court, the resources, they would have done something better with it. But then politicians sometimes don't understand that when you drag yourself to court, you want to delay, you are not delaying anybody. You are going to delay yourself. APC has been trying to, put their house in order, register people and things like that, even ADC. But PDP, they've been trying to solve their own internal problems. So even at this point, if PDP cannot find a way to resolve all of these crises, then it's up to them. So let me talk about ADC for a moment now. People were jubilating online yesterday. Even congratulations, Nigeria is still trending on Twitter. Why? Because the people feel like APC will not be on the ballot alone. And people are still calling for the sack of Amukwito. Why? Because they think he interpreted the court ruling that says status quo antebellum. They think he interpreted that court ruling wrongly. And to say that, okay, he wants to remove the David Mark, executive, and of course, Aregbesola, the national secretary. So at this point in this country, I think we have mixed a lot of things together. INEC, interference, the court, and things like that. Can we set aside all of those problems and prepare for the election for the sake of the electorate? Let's ensure that people will have options. Because, I mean, that's the essence of democracy. If you don't have more than 2 persons on the ballot, what about people who are not interested in voting for those 2 people? So we should have at least 3 to 4 so that people can decide, just like how we had in the last election. Let the electorate decide who they want. But then you will not make it easy for the electorate. And at the same point, it is still politicians that will go on national TV and talk about political party. While what you are presenting to the people is not enough. Give them options. Let them choose, basically.
Well, when you say, there might likely be 2 people, or maybe with the look of things, maybe just 2 candidates on the ballot come 2027 when it comes to the presidential election. I don't think that will be possible. We'll still have a lot of people, just as you have...
It might not be known.
Yes, you will just have maybe 2 recognized candidates. And, I have always said this, that Nigerians are also culpable in all of this. Okay, you want the most popular candidate or candidates, let me put it that way. And then you forget that there are also political parties on the ballot that you are not looking at. Even some people don't even know the name of some political parties. And when you are looking for the best candidate for the job, for the best man for the job, it's not really about the political anymore. That is for the electorate. Because politicians will always bring you what they think is right. But as the electorate, do you think what they have brought to you is the right candidate? That is what you should be looking at. You can go for any political party on the ballot as long as you feel like, yes, I think I want this person. But unfortunately, we are too fixated on the 2 or 3 major political parties that we forget that there are also some other political parties down there that we should look at. At least if you check the ballot, it is always as long as this now, and there are political parties on it. So if you are not looking downward or looking at that direction, then there is a lot we need to discuss. Maybe we need to do a little bit more of enlightenment for the electorate to understand that not just 2 or 3 parties are on the ballot. There are other political parties too, and you have the option to pick from all of them, not just the 3 that you think you know quite well. And also I want us to talk about the key takeaways from what just happened and the court ruling yesterday. What that simply means is that it was not just a legal ruling, it was a major political reset in Nigeria. That puts Nigeria as a country, especially when some people were talking about a one-party state, likelihood of a one-party state. It actually set us on the path that there will not be a one-party state only if these political parties that are accusing the APC and the federal government of trying to form a one-party state, if they all come down from their high horses and do the needful. Because I for one believe that if you are saying the APC wants a one-party state, yes, let's put that aside, okay? That might be true, and it might not be true. But you, as an opposition party, what exactly are you doing to make sure that the APC does not get the chance to be the only party in Nigeria? Because, first of all, if you cannot settle your internal wranglings, if you cannot settle your party problems, then how are you going to settle Nigeria's problems? I don't see that happening. So, first of all, if you are going to rule Nigeria as a country, can you solve the problems in your political party? Someone accused Peter Obi of that particular thing, I think about 2 weeks ago, and said, look, This same person that could not solve little party problems wants to solve the problem of Nigeria. I'm not saying that is true. I'm just saying that within the party, what exactly have you done to solve your own issues? If all you have done in the last few months is to go to court back and forth, get court judgments against another judgment, stay of execution, this and that, that's not the kind of politics you want to. The 2027 general election is just around the corner, and you are still busy going about getting court judgment. I think by now, all that should have been put under the carpet, and then we talk about politics itself and not court cases, because it's even an aberration that political parties cannot solve their own problems and they have to resolve to go into court, because that is the beginning of democracy. If that cannot be practiced in your party, then there's a problem. And the court judgment effectively put to rest the issue of the Ibadan Convention and the Abuja Convention. It has now been made clear that those two conventions are null and void. Every penny, just like you mentioned, every penny spent on that is a total waste, and you can just consider that as a meet and greet between old political bodies who have not seen each other for a long time, who came together to have a nice time. That is what the interpretation actually means at this time, because if the court does not recognize any convention, then it means that you just came to have some get together in Ibadan and in Abuja, and then everybody goes back to where they are coming from. Away from that, the Turaki-led leadership has no legal standing as it stands. So, meaning that the reason after that is why the BOT actually had to take swift action, take hold of the party, and then see what exactly they can do to restore peace in the political party. So, Turaki, as the factional chairman of the PDP, has been laid to rest. There's nothing like that anymore, because that was the result of the Ibadan Convention. Another thing that also catches my attention is that court has prioritized the rule of law over internal party argument. Okay, if you have taken any case to court, court has the legal standing to give a verdict. Okay, as they deem fit. And once that is done, whatever it is they have told you to go and do within your political party, you go and do it, because you had party constitution in the first place. The reason you did not follow your party constitution is unclear to anybody, and the court will have to come and help you interpret what is in your party constitution, which can be considered as a bylaw in Nigeria, because the constitution is the major law everyone uses. That your own party constitution, they will help you interpret it, because originally you should understand it better than any other person. But unfortunately, now that you do not understand it, the court will help you interpret, and that has been done. Go back to your party constitution, do the needful. And also, the Wike camp seem to have a little bit of upper hand in all of this. Why did I say that? As it stands, the Shemakinde, maybe that is why you see some people in that faction will say there's no room for reconciliation, because when that happens, there'll be some sort of negotiation. And I think as it stands, the Wike faction will get a little bit of upper hand in all of that, because politically, the biggest winner from the judgment is the Yes of Wike aligned bloc. The ruling effectively weakens the Shemakinde-backed Turaki faction and clears the way for the Wike-backed structure to retain greater influence in the party's power equation. So this might mean that is exactly why the PDP faction of the Shemakinde faction of the PDP are thinking, oh, there might not be a reconciliation at this time, because they know that there will still be a little bit of upper hand for them when it comes to the scheme of things. But then, is the PDP ready? Let's talk about the readiness in 2027. They have just about 2 weeks to decide who their flag bearers will be in the next general election. And unfortunately, is that enough to sort their problems? Is that enough to go to court and back? Is that enough to now say, look, let's have a reconciliation meeting? Because as it stands now, you now begin to discuss sharing formula. Oh, we take 60%, you take 40%, we are taking 70, you take 30, oh, we are not giving you anything, and then we go back to court. I mean, which court will now give you a judgment that you can appeal and then go to Supreme Court in the space of 2 weeks? So the PDP, effective, to some extent, some people say the PDP might likely be in comatose right now. Maybe I don't want to use the word dead, but as it stands, if care is not taken, they don't have enough time. Okay, while other parties were busy registering their party members, getting to know how many people they are going to look forward to vote for them in the next general election, they are still discussing who takes hold of the party. And that for me is, the distance is quite much. It's just like you doing 100-meter race and then you have told, the person competing against you to go stay 100 meters ahead. I mean, be 50 meters ahead. That's huge. I don't think, no matter how fast you are still going to have issues catching up. So, as it stands, I don't think the PDP can catch up in any of this. And it's a major disaster for democracy in Nigeria. If a party like PDP will not be on the ballot, I'm not saying they will not be. I'm just saying if they continue this way, they might just not be on the ballot. And if they are, the court cases they still have pending might just be their own undoing, and they might do a Zamfara. Even if they win anything, they will still, it will be ruled out and say, look, you did not win this on the normal ground, and then we have to take it away from you and give it to the next person. So it's a disaster waiting to happen. And if PDP cannot solve their problem right now, I don't know how they can save Nigeria's democracy.
I think it's very important. The valid point you've made, and as well, Yemi, because I remember 2019, if you possibly look at that elections, you discover, okay, let's say 2023 too. What really became a thing for the APC particularly was not just because the APC was just too strong in every place. No, it was just because there were factions, there were issues with parties. I mean, not factions now. There were issues with parties that could not really cloud themselves together to say, okay, this is what we want to do, and we are ready to do it. And I'm saying that because once there are factional disputes between parties, and once a lot of parties don't have structures enough and they don't have the trust and the backing of people, what will happen is that the incumbent administration would win again. It's just so clear, because obviously if you split their votes across board, so if you have many parties win different places, obviously the incumbents, the APC in this sense, would actually win the election, because that's one of the calculations and permutations of this election as we speak. But I just wanted to also add to it that I want to look at it not also from the politics angle now, but as a Nigerian, I want to look at it from that standpoint and say that I know it takes a lot of time to develop policy, and a policy that works, and a policy that would work for Nigeria. It takes so much time. And oftentimes what we've seen, especially in the political scenario that we've had in the country, is that our leaders, or should we say our parties, are focused more on the politics side of things than the administration of things. They look so much about what would become, how can we become, and all of that, and they fail to look at the policy. In fact, there are a lot of constitutions in terms of the party that are now still, that should have been reviewed, and they are not doing any of that. There are a lot of things they have set up. I think what they have is, they have like a stereotypic way of writing their manifesto. If you check, you see it's not very different from what they've been giving us all this while. And why? It's obvious. They focus more on winning elections and politics than they focus on administrating the party, in the sense of having a something structured, something institutional for the party. What are the policy prescriptions? So you see a lot of them will come, and you will not see anything that is quite substantial in their conversation when they eventually have conversations with the press now to say, what are you bringing to the table? You will not find anything that is politically, or should we say, that is like a policy that is strong enough to help this country. Why? Because they are spending enough time on litigation, on court ruling, on politics, and all of that, and it does not really help. Developed nations of the world who have done better in terms of governance in this world, they have taken enough time, just the same time they would take to run elections. They have taken enough time, or even much more, to develop strategies, policies, and policy prescriptions that can help their country. We do not look at the policies in the country. What we look at is how to win elections, and it's a wrong thing to do. If we have politicians who don't sit down, I mean, where do they have conferences? If they have convention, it should not just be about who is going to be the national leader, who is going to be the chairman. No, it should also be that what are the new things we want to set up as the cause for the people, right? How can we say, Nigeria, this is where we are. Talking economy, how can we make this better? Talking health, how can we get this better? So they don't have those meetings. What they have is conventions about parties, about elections. Come 2027, these are the things we want to do. And they do not sit down to look at how their formations and their formulations and maybe policy can help the country move forward. And I think that's one of the things they are doing wrong. And I'm not just saying this for the PDP alone. I'm saying for every other party too. They spend so much time on politics, on election, on winning elections, than they spend on policy formulation.
Administration.
Okay, so when you mentioned that, politicians sometimes I'm majorly concerned about winning election. It reminds me of Berlin conference that happened, for the scramble of Africa. These people just gathered to say, how can we share the goodies across the African countries, not majorly how to help them grow. So I'll say something that I really do not see the peace yet, even after the court ruling, because according to Wike, he said, Supreme Court confirms PDP unity, ends factional crisis. Is that true? Because according to Turaki, he said Supreme Court ruling has thrown PDP into leadership crisis, according to Turaki. So it appears that even these two parties are not ready to reconcile. So we are not really seeing the peace. And then speaking to the fact that if at all PDP is able to field a candidate, and then we still have other political parties. You see, I don't know, politicians in Nigeria have found a way to create a system that revolves around 3 dominant parties. As a matter of fact, it used to be 2. If not because Labour Party found a way to climb the ladder and they became the third wheel in the last election because the likes of Peter Obi, defected to the party. So even Showore, that is a bit popular, that people know because of his activism, how many votes was he able to gather? Now think of those smaller parties like ZLP. If you go to Ibadan in the last election, those mamas in the market, they only know PDP and if any other thing, they don't understand. Exactly. So if you begin to explain to them that the other parties, they don't get you. So the politicians created a system around those dominant. So it's a systemic problem until we are intentional about giving a room to other parties too. And then let's talk about financing election too. Those smaller parties, do they have the resources? The system that is in play now, if you don't have money, one person said he cannot spend shishi. He's joking. Because the politics of Nigeria, you will spend billions before you can actually say you want to contest for election. So contesting for election is even so expensive. Imagine how much they are buying for APC. Look at PDP too. It's a problem until we work on those things. We are not really ready to give room for other political parties that are really small.
Well, eventually everyone will have to give shishi. When it comes to politics in Nigeria, in fact, you give more than shishi because it is not free. And lastly, in 30 seconds before we go, I think the issue of Nigerians not recognizing more than 2 or 3 political parties, we can't really blame them for all of that. It has to be the blame of these political parties too, and the politicians. And another thing I see is some of these parties that are being floated, for what purpose? Is a question you have to ask. Are some people floating political parties just to negotiate at the end of the day? Do they really want to win elections? What structure do you have? How are you planning to create your own structure? I just spoke this morning about not relying too much on the major political parties. We can also vote for other political parties, but the problem is how much publicity do we have for these other political parties? The major financiers of the smaller ones, what exactly was the goal? Was it for them to just float a party, maybe win 1 or 2 seats, and then use in the run-up to the election, use that political party to negotiate? That's another big one and a very big question to answer. That is the chairman of the BOT having the speech yesterday, Adolfo Ozuabara, discussing with some of the major PDP stakeholders, who attended the emergency meeting yesterday in Abuja. But away from there, that will be the convenient point to leave that topic this morning. Let's help you plan your day and see what the weather looks like across the country. It is time to take weather reports on Daybreak Live Extra.